You know what's crazy? The average 53-year-old man has less than 100,000 saved for retirement, not 1 million. Not even close, less than 100K. And here's the part that doesn't make sense. He's not struggling, he owns a home. He takes vacations, his kids go to good schools. He's making more money than he ever has in his life. From the outside, everything looks fine. But that's the trap. Because he's not broke, he's just quietly falling behind. And the worst part, most of it isn't happening because of bad decisions. It's happening because of perfectly reasonable ones stacked over time. In this video, I'm going to break down the 4 financial traps that quietly destroy men in their 50s. And what makes these traps so dangerous is this. They don't come from stupidity. They don't come from reckless decisions. And they don't come from a lack of effort. They come from doing exactly what you were supposed to do. You built a stable career, you showed up consistently. You took care of your family. You upgraded your life step by step as your income grew. Nothing about that feels wrong. In fact, it feels responsible. But that's exactly how the trap is built. Because over time, those small, reasonable decisions start stacking. A slightly bigger house, a slightly nicer car, better schools for the kids, more commitments, more obligations, more fixed costs. Each one on its own makes perfect sense. But together, they start to form a structure that quietly locks you in. And by the time you reach your 50s, you're no longer building wealth. You're maintaining a system that looks successful on the outside, but is far more fragile than it appears. This is why your 50s are so deceptive. From the outside, it looks like you've made it. But underneath that surface, something very different is happening. Your margin is shrinking, your flexibility is disappearing, and your ability to recover from mistakes is quietly running out. And here's the part almost nobody talks about. I'm going to show you the actual math behind this, not generic advice, not save more or spend less. Real numbers that explain why so many men who did everything right still end up stuck, stressed, or forced to work far longer than they expected. Because once you see how these traps actually work, you start to realize something uncomfortable. It's not what you're doing wrong that's hurting you. It's what you've been doing right for the last 20 years. Before we get into the specific traps, there's one idea you need to understand first. Because once you see this, you'll start recognizing it everywhere. I want you to imagine a giant anchor. Not a small one, a massive one. The kind ships use: solid metal, heavy, unmovable. Now imagine it's made of gold, polished, impressive, expensive. The kind of thing people look at and immediately think, that must have taken years to earn. That's what most men in their 50s are carrying. A collection of golden anchors. Your mortgage is a golden anchor. Your car payment's another one. Your lifestyle, your subscriptions, your fixed monthly costs. Even your identity. The house you live in, the neighborhood, the expectations people have of you. Those are anchors too. And here's why this matters. Anchors are designed to provide stability. They keep you in place. They stop you from drifting. And for a while that feels like control. It feels like you've built something solid. But there's a problem. Because the same thing that keeps you stable also keeps you stuck. These things feel like success. But what they're really doing is locking you into a version of your life that becomes harder and harder to change. And that's fine until something changes. Because life always does. The market drops. Your income slows down. A health issue shows up. Your family situation shifts. Or you simply realize you don't want to keep living the same way anymore. And in those moments, your anchor doesn't protect you. It doesn't give you flexibility. It doesn't give you options. It does the exact opposite. It holds you in place while everything around you starts moving. And if the pressure builds high enough, it doesn't just hold you back. It pulls you under. That's the part most people never see coming. The men who end up with real financial freedom in their 60s aren't the ones who collected the most impressive anchors. They're the ones who quietly learned how to cut them loose before they needed to. And every trap we're about to go through is just another version of that anchor. You just don't recognize it yet. Let me show you where everything starts to quietly break. Because this is the trap that doesn't look like a mistake. It looks like success. Meet Richard. Richard is 51 years old. He's a regional sales director making $190,000 a year. This is the highest income he's ever earned. Higher than his parents. Higher than he ever imagined in his 20s. From the outside, Richard is winning. Nice house, 2 cars, kids in private school, family vacations every year. If you asked him how he's doing financially, he'd say, I am doing fine. But here's what his life actually costs. 4th, 2,000 mortgage, 800 month car payment, 5,000 for his kids' tuition, 5,000 month in memberships and subscriptions, 600 month in insurance, utilities, and fixed bills. Before Richard buys groceries, before gas, before a single discretionary dollar. He's already committed to over $509,000 per month in fixed expenses. After taxes, his take-home income is around $11,000 a month. That means most of his income is already spoken for, just to maintain his current life. Now here's the part nobody calculates. That number is his burn rate, his financial floor, the amount it costs him just to stay still. And once your burn rate gets too high, your income stops mattering. Because here's the truth, you don't build wealth with income. You build wealth with what's left after your life is paid for. And Richard has very little left. So what happens next? He doesn't feel broke, but he's not building real wealth either. He's stuck in a loop. Earn more, spend more, stay in the same place. For 10, 15, sometimes 20 years. Now let me show you the invisible cost of this. Let's say Richard could have avoided just one of those obligations. Not everything. Just one, maybe a slightly cheaper car. Maybe skipping one membership, maybe delaying private school. Let's call it $800 per month. If he invested that $800 a month at a very normal 7% return, by the time he's 65, that turns it over $400,000. And think about that one small decision. One expense that felt completely reasonable. Just cost him nearly $500,000. And this is why this trap is so dangerous. Because nothing Richard did felt irresponsible. Every decision passed the same test. Can I afford the monthly payment? And the answer was always yes. But affordability is a terrible filter for building wealth. Because affordability asks, can I pay for this today? Wealth asks, what is this costing my future? And those are two completely different questions. So when people say, I just need to earn more money, most of the time that's not the problem. The real problem is structure. Key line. You don't have an income problem. You have a structure problem. Because if your lifestyle expands as fast as your income, you can make 80,000 or 180,000 and end up in the exact same place. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most men don't realize this until their 50s, when the math finally becomes impossible to ignore. Because by then, the burn rate isn't flexible anymore. It's locked in, and that's when a lifestyle that once felt like success starts behaving like a trap. Here's where the trap gets deeper and more psychological. Because this isn't about math anymore. This is about how you think. Somewhere in your late 40s, early 50s, something subtle shifts. You don't notice it at first, but it changes everything. In your 30s and early 40s, you refocused on building more income, more opportunity, more upside. You take risks, you make moves, you think in terms of growth. But then something changes. You start thinking differently. Not, how much can I build? But how much do I need to protect? And that sounds mature. It sounds responsible. It feels like you've leveled up. But here's the twist. You're not protecting wealth, you're protecting your lifestyle. And those are not the same thing, because by this stage of life, your lifestyle has quietly expanded. Better neighborhood, nicer car, private school, vacations that became normal. None of these happened overnight. They stacked, one decision at a time, each one reasonable, each one justified. This is what's called the lifestyle ratchet. It only moves in one direction, up. Your lifestyle grows quietly, but it never shrinks quietly, because increasing your lifestyle is easy. It feels like progress, but reducing it, that comes with friction, social pressure, family expectations, your own identity. And that's where the real trap is. You start defending things that are quietly hurting you. Not because you're irrational, but because those things now feel necessary. The house isn't just a house anymore. It's stability, it's status, it's where your kids grew up. The car isn't just transportation, it's what you earned. It's how people see you. It's how you see yourself. The lifestyle becomes part of your identity. So even when the numbers stop making sense, you don't adjust. You protect, and protection can be expensive, because now instead of asking, is this helping me build wealth? You re-asking, how do I maintain everything I've built? And that's how people get stuck. They stop optimizing for freedom and start optimizing for continuity, keeping everything the same, no disruption, no visible downgrade. But here's the problem. Life doesn't stay the same. Markets change, jobs change, health changes. And when that happens, a flexible life adapts, a rigid life breaks. You thought you were protecting your future, but you were actually protecting a lifestyle that your future may not be able to afford. And this is where the golden anchor becomes dangerous. Because now, you don't just have it, you're emotionally attached to it, which makes it incredibly hard to cut, even when you need to. And that's exactly how the trap works. Not through bad decisions, but through reasonable decisions that become untouchable. By the time most men realize this, they were not building anymore. They were just trying to hold everything together. Now we get to the trap that almost nobody talks about, because it's not intuitive, and it does show up in average returns. Most people think retirement success comes down to one thing. How much money do I have? But there's a second variable that's just as important, and far more dangerous, when you get your returns. Let me show you what I mean. Imagine two men, same age, same retirement savings, same exact investments. Both average 7% returns over time. On paper, they should end up in the same place. But they don't T. Not even close. Here's why. Scenario: the market grows steadily in the early years of retirement. No major crashes. Your portfolio compounds normally. You withdraw a small percentage each year, and your money lasts 25-30 years. Everything works. Scenario B: the market drops 30-35% in the first 1-2 years of retirement. Then it recovers. And you still average 7%, same average returns, but completely different outcome. Because in scenario B, you're re-withdrawing money while your portfolio is down. Think about that. Every month, you're reselling investments at a discount, locking in losses, reducing the base that is supposed to recover. So when the market eventually comes back, you don't fully recover, because there's less money left to grow. This is called sequence of returns risk, and it's one of the most financially destructive forces, especially in your 50s and early retirement years. It's not just how much you earn, it's when you earn it. Because returns are not just numbers, they sequence, an order, and if the order is wrong, even a good average return can fail you. Let me make this real. Imagine you retire with $600,000, you plan to withdraw 4% per year, that's $24,000 annually. Now the market drops 30%. Your portfolio falls to around $420,000, but your life does to get 30% cheaper. You still need that $24,000. So now you're re-withdrawing a much larger percentage from a much smaller base, and every withdrawal digs the hole deeper. Even if the market rebounds later, the damage is already done. This is exactly what happened to people who retired around 2007-2008. The market crashed. Portfolios got cut nearly in half. And even though the market recovered within a few years, many of those portfolios never did. Because they were drawing down during the crash, the sequence ate them. And here's the scary part. Most retirement calculators don't show this. They assume smooth average returns, a straight line. But real markets don't move in straight lines. They move in shocks. And those shocks matter most right when you stop earning income. So if you're in your 50s, this risk is no longer theoretical. It's immediate. Because you're approaching the exact window where one bad sequence can permanently change your future. And this is why two people with the same savings, the same discipline, and the same average returns can end up with completely different retirements. One has options. The other runs out of time, not because they did anything wrong, but because the timing went against them. Now let's talk about the trap that almost nobody feels, but almost everyone pays for, because this one doesn't show up as a big expense. It doesn't hit your bank account all at once. It doesn't trigger any emotional reaction. It just quietly drains your future. I am talking about invisible fees, advisor fees, fund expense ratios, management costs, insurance product fees. All the small percentages that look harmless, but compound over time. Here's how this usually looks. You work with a financial advisor. They charge around 1% to 1.5% per year. Sounds reasonable, right? It's just 1%. But here's the problem. That fee isn't charged once. It's charged every single year. On your entire portfolio, now layer in fund fees. Most actively managed funds charge another 0.5% to 1%. So now you're repaying 1.5%, sometimes even 2% annually. And it still doesn't feel expensive because you never see a bill. It just gets deducted quietly in the background. Keyline, it doesn't feel expensive because it leaves slowly. But over time, that small percentage becomes massive. Let's look at the math. Imagine you have $600,000 invested, growing at 7% annually. Scenario: a low-cost investing. You use index funds, total cost around 0.03 cent per year. After 15 years, your portfolio goes to roughly $165 million. Scenario B: high fee structure. Advisor fund fees 1.27.5% per year. Same returns. But now, after 15 years, you end up with closer to $145 million. That's a difference of roughly $50,000 to $200,000 gone. Not from bad investing, not from market crashes, just fees. And here's what makes this trap dangerous. You never feel the loss. There is no moment where 1 in 50,000 disappears. No alert, no warning. It leaves in small amounts, quarter by quarter, year by year. Too small to notice, but too large to ignore over time. And the worst part, most people think they're doing the smart thing. They think, I have a professional managing my money. I'm diversified. I'm taken care of. And sometimes that's true. But here's the uncomfortable reality. The industry isn't always designed to minimize your costs. It's designed to maximize assets under management. That means the longer your money stays there, the more fees get collected. And again, this isn't about bad people, it's about incentives. Keyline, what looks like guidance, can quietly become a drag on your future. Because every percentage point you lose to fees is a percentage point that doesn't compound for you. And in your 50s, you don't have 30 years to recover from that drag. You're in the final stretch, which means small inefficiencies become big outcomes. So while everyone is focused on picking the right stock, timing the market, chasing higher returns, they completely ignore the simplest lever, keeping more of what they already earn. Because in the end, building wealth isn't just about returns. It's about what you actually get to keep. Now we reach the point where everything stacks. Because up until now, each trap on its own is manageable. High burn rate, fixable. Bad timing in the market, you can adjust fees, you can optimize. But in your 50s, something different happens. These pressures don't show up one at a time. They show up all at once. This is what I call the triple hit. Three forces hitting the same decade: aging parents, adult children, divorce risk. Individually, you can handle any one of them. Together, they can completely overwhelm your finances. Let me show you what this looks like in real life. Remember Gary, 54 years old, successful, 600,000 invested. From the outside, he looks fine. But here's what actually happens. First, his mother needs care, not occasional help. Full-time support, assisted living costs $5,000 to $7,000 per month. His mother has some savings, but not enough. So Gary steps in, he starts covering $3,000 per month out of pocket. That's the first hit. Second, his kids are approaching college. Tuition, housing, fees, it adds up to $40,000 to $60,000 per year per child. Gary has 2 kids, and like most parents, he wants to help, so now he has funding education. At the exact same time, his retirement window is shrinking. That's the second hit. Then comes the third. His marriage breaks down. Divorce in your 50s isn't just emotional. It's as financial. Assets get split. Retirement accounts get divided. The house goes through legal processes. What took 25 years to build gets cut in half. That's the third hit. Now look at the full picture. Gary is paying for his mother's care, funding his kid's future, and rebuilding his own life, all at the same time. Individually manageable, together devastating, because this isn't just about expenses, it's about timing. All 3 hits land. Right when your margin for error is the smallest, you're no longer in your 30s. You don't have decades to recover. You're 10-15 years away from retirement. Every dollar that goes out now is a dollar that doesn't compound. And here's what makes this trap so dangerous. No financial plan I've seen fully prices all 3 of these in at once. You will see plans for retirement, plans for college, plans for elder care, but rarely a plan that assumes all 3 happen together. And in real life, they often do. That's how someone can go from, I'm on track to, I don't know if I can retire in just a few years. Not because they were reckless, not because they made bad decisions, but because life stacked multiple demands on top of a system that was already stretched. And this is the moment where the golden anchors become impossible to ignore, because now there's no extra capacity, no flexibility, no room to absorb shocks. Everything is already allocated, and when everything is spoken for, even a small disruption becomes a major problem. That's the triple hit, not one mistake, but multiple realities colliding at the same time. And for most men, this is the point where I'll figure it out turns into, I'm not sure I can. This next trap is the hardest one to see, because it doesn't feel like a financial decision. It feels like who you are. By the time you reach your 50s, you're not just earning money, you've built an identity. You're known as something. The executive, the business owner, the provider, the successful one in your circle. And that identity comes with a cost, not a one-time cost, a monthly cost. Because you're not just spending money anymore. You're maintaining a version of yourself. Think about it, the house you live in. It's not just where you sleep. It signals stability, success, a certain standard. The car you drive, it's not just transportation. It reflects what you've achieved, what you've earned, how others see you. Your social circle, the restaurants, the vacations, the events, those aren't just experiences, they re-expectations. Every status signal has a monthly payment, and the higher your identity climbs, the more expensive it becomes to maintain. Here's the problem. These costs don't feel optional, they feel required. Because dropping them doesn't feel like saving money. It feels like losing status, like moving backward, like undoing your success. So even when the numbers stop making sense, keep paying. You keep the house, you keep the car, you keep the lifestyle. Not because you can afford it, but because you feel like you have to. And this is where the trap locks in. Because now your financial decisions are no longer driven by logic, they're driven by identity. Let me show you how powerful this is. 2 men, same income, same career path, same opportunities. One chooses to maintain a high-status lifestyle, the right neighborhood, the right car, the right social signals. The other chooses a slightly lower profile. Still comfortable, still successful, but more controlled. Fast forward 15 years. The first man looks successful, but has limited flexibility, high expenses, lower savings, constant pressure to maintain. The second man, he has options, more savings, lower obligations, freedom to choose what he does next, same income, completely different outcomes. Because one was buying approval, the other was buying freedom. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people know this while it's happening. They feel the pressure. They see the numbers, but they don't stop. Because every decision feels justified in isolation. This is for my family. This is part of the lifestyle. I've earned this. And none of those are wrong. But together, they create a system that's incredibly hard to escape. Because once your identity is tied to your lifestyle, cutting back isn't just financial, it's emotional. Social, psychological, you don't just lose expenses. You feel like you're losing a part of yourself. And that's why this trap is so powerful. Not because people are careless, but because they consistent. They keep reinforcing the same identity, year after year, decision after decision, payment after payment, until one day, they realize they didn't just build a lifestyle, they built something they can just step away from. And at that point, the golden anchor isn't just heavy, it's part of who they believe they are. Let's bring all of this together. Because the difference between winning and struggling in your 50s isn't complicated, as invisible until you see it side by side. Two men, same age, 50, same income. 1 in 80,000 per year, same market returns, same opportunities on paper. They should end up in the same place. But they done. Mana has built a life that looks successful. Nice home, 2 cars, private school, vacations, memberships. His fixed monthly expenses, his burn rate, are around 11,000 per month after taxes. He takes home roughly 9,800 per month, which means before he buys anything, he's already running a deficit. So what happens? He uses bonuses, he uses credit, he delays investing. He tells himself he'll catch up later. Man B earns the exact same income, but his lifestyle is more controlled. His burn rate is around 6,000 per month. After taxes, that leaves him with roughly 3,800 per month to invest every month, consistently, no complexity. No fancy strategy. Fast forward 15 years, same market, same 7% average returns. Mana manages to save very little. Maybe he accumulates around 100,000, 50,000, if that. Man B, he invests 3,800 a month. At 7% for 15 years, he ends up with roughly 1.1 million, same income, same time, same market, X difference in outcome. Now let's take it one step further. At age 65, Man B can withdraw about 40,000, 45,000 per year using a conservative strategy. Add Social Security, and he has a stable, flexible retirement. Mana, he has Social Security and maybe a small supplement. But his lifestyle required far more than that. So he has 2 choices: keep working or drastically cut his life down. One has options, the other has obligations, and this is the part most people miss. The difference between these 2 men is not intelligence, not discipline, not even opportunity, it's margin, core insight. The difference isn't the market, it's the margin. Because the market doesn't create wealth by itself. It amplifies whatever you give it. If you give it nothing, you get nothing. If you give it consistent margin, it compounds into something powerful. And that's why this comparison matters. Because most people are focused on picking better investments, timing the market, chasing higher returns, when the real lever is much simpler. How much of your income actually makes it into investments? Because in the end, wealth isn't built by what you earn, it's built by what you don't spend. And that gap, that margin, is what determines everything. So now the question becomes, what do you actually do with all of this? Because awareness is useful, but only if it leads to action. I'm going to give you a simple framework. 3 steps, no complexity, no theory, just practical moves you can make this week. Step 1, calculate your burn rate. This is the most important number in your entire financial life, and most people have never calculated it. Open your bank account, open your credit cards, list out every fixed obligation, mortgage or rent, car payments, insurance, subscriptions, tuition, debt payments, any recurring financial commitments. Add them up. That number is your financial floor, the cost of your life, before you make a single choice. Now compare it to your monthly take-home income. If your burn rate is under 5%, you have flexibility. 56% you are getting tight. Over 60% you have a structural problem. Budgeting won't fix a structure problem. Only removing obligations will, and you already know which one needs to go. Step 2, stress test your retirement. Most people plan for retirement using average returns. That's the mistake, because averages dawn to reflect reality. Instead, ask a better question: what happens if things go wrong? Model this scenario. Market drops 30% in the first 1-2 years. You still need to withdraw income. Recovery happens later. Does your plan survive, or does it start breaking down? If your plan only works in a perfect scenario, it's not a plan, it's a hope, because in your 50s, you don't need a perfect plan. You need a resilient one. Step 3, audit every fee. This is the easiest win most people ignore. Go through your investments. Look at advisor fees, fund expense ratios, management costs, add them together. If you're repaying more than 0.3% annually, 30 basis points, that's a red flag, because over time, that difference compounds into 6 figures. And remember, you don't notice fees because they don't leave all at once. They leave slowly, while your future compounds less. Final thought for this section: this framework isn't complicated, it's just uncomfortable, because it forces you to confront what your life actually costs, whether your plan actually works, and how much you're quietly losing. But this is the shift from guessing to measuring, from reacting to controlling. Because once you see these numbers clearly, you can finally start making decisions that actually move you forward. Let's bring this back to where we started. Most men don't fail financially because they re careless. They don't fail because they re lazy or irresponsible or making obviously bad decisions. They fail because success quietly creates constraints. The house you worked for, the lifestyle you built, the identity you earned. None of those are mistakes. But over time, they start to limit your flexibility. And that's the shift most people never see. Because success feels like progress. It feels like you're moving forward. But if that success comes with rising obligations, rising costs, and less room to adjust, then what you're really building is rigidity, and rigidity is dangerous. Because life doesn't stay stable. Markets change, income changes, health changes, family responsibilities change. And when those changes come, flexibility is what protects you, not income, not status, not appearances. Wealth isn't what you earn. It's what you keep flexible. Because real wealth gives you options. The option to step back, the option to change direction, the option to say no. But when your life is fully locked in, those options disappear. And that's the real risk of your 50s. Not that you didn't earn enough, but that you built a life that requires too much to maintain. So the goal isn't just to make more money. It's to design a life that can adapt when things change. Because in the end, the men who come out ahead aren't the ones who look the most successful at 52. They were the ones who quietly reduced constraints, protected their flexibility, and gave themselves room to move before they needed it. The men who retire early aren't the ones who earned the most. They were the ones who saw the weight early and had the discipline to let it go, because in the end, it's not the market that traps you. It's not timing. It's not even income. It's the anchors you refuse to cut. And by the time most people realize the water is rising, it's already too late to move. The only question is, will you cut them now or wait until they pull you under?